Welcome to this presentation on Ukraine REACH and more specifically the only representative function thereof. So I'm Frederik Johanson, I'm a partner head of sales at REACHLaw, and today we are going to discuss the following topics. So we'll give you just a quick overview of REACHLaw, so what we do more specifically in the scope of Ukraine REACH. Then we'll look at what kind of options you have for exporting from outside of the Ukraine into Ukraine chemicals. Then we'll look at the only representative concept, which is essentially identical to that of EU REACH. We'll look at the legal text covering only representation. Then we give a few examples of the differences of having like an importer configuration versus having your own only representative appointed in Ukraine REACH in Ukraine for Ukraine REACH purposes to take care of importer obligations. Then we'll look at how to appoint an only representative, and at the end of this presentation we'll look at how you can get in touch with REACHLaw, so our contact details. So just quickly, REACHLaw in brief. So we at REACHLaw provide support for EU REACH and REACH-like chemical regulations globally. This also now encompasses Ukraine REACH, which will be the focus of this presentation. So for that purpose we have our own office subsidiary in Kyiv in Ukraine, who can provide only representative services according to this presentation today. But beyond Ukraine REACH, of course, we work with EU REACH, where it all began, UK REACH, where we have our office in Manchester, subsidiary there also. We have also a small office in Brussels, focusing more on IT related solutions. Then of course in Turkey for Turkey KKDIK. We have an office there also in Istanbul, and in Seoul, South Korea for K-REACH and K-OSHA purposes also. And we also have an office in India for servicing local clients there, and also providing support on India BIS. India REACH is still pending indefinitely, so if that ever comes to fruition, then of course we'll provide services related to India REACH. But today we'll focus on Ukraine REACH. Speaking of Ukraine REACH, here's a list of our services for Ukraine REACH and Ukraine CLP, which CLP will be a subject of a separate video. But we do everything that's needed for you placing chemicals on the Ukrainian market. Either you're a non-Ukrainian company who wants to appoint an only representative, or you already have entities in Ukraine who are also subject to Ukraine REACH. So we do all the required compliance actions, starting from pre-registration, then eventually going to the registration phase for co-registration, where we do for the full or the normal regular registration as well as the simplified, and of course also lead registration work, consortia, CEF management where applicable, SDS authoring, and then we come to the CLP work, so notifications, labels, and of course classification where need be, for example part of lead registration work, etc. And of course provide consulting training where need be. So that's REACHLaw in brief. So let's look at Ukraine REACH only representation, what that means in practice. So this will be a bit shorter presentation, but still try to cover all the necessary bits pertaining to only representation in Ukraine under Ukraine REACH. So to place chemicals or importing chemicals into Ukraine, you essentially have three options available for you. So you can have a local entity in Ukraine for example, your customers, or if you have your own subsidiary there, to take care of importer obligations under Ukraine REACH. So this means pre-registration, eventually registration, and so forth. And these have been already, pre-registration and registration have been covered in a separate video, so I invite you to have a look at those. But you can also, as another option, if you are non-Ukrainian manufacturer of substances or formulator or mixtures, then you can also appoint an only representative under Ukraine REACH to take care of importer obligations. Or then option 3, of course, is a combination of both. But in this presentation, we will, of course, focus on the only representative option here, because it's typically the most efficient one if you are a manufacturer or formulator. So the only representative concept under Ukraine REACH is, you could say, identical to that under EU REACH or Turkey REACH for that matter, and even UK REACH, albeit the processes are a bit different there. So the who can appoint an only representative under Ukraine REACH is only non-Ukrainian manufacturers of substances or non-Ukrainian formulators or mixtures from substances, so 2 substances or more becomes a mixture, can appoint an only representative to take care of these Ukraine REACH importer obligations, as defined in Articles 28 to 30 in Ukraine REACH. So this is very important to understand, that unfortunately traders who are neither manufacturers or formulators or other distributors in the supply chain cannot appoint an only representative under Ukraine REACH. So let me just reiterate: only non-Ukrainian manufacturers of substances and formulators or mixtures can assign a Ukraine REACH only representative. No one else can appoint an only representative under Ukraine REACH. And this is the same approach as under EU REACH or Turkey KKDIK or UK REACH for that matter. So the only representative will take care of Ukraine REACH importer obligations. These are conducting the pre-registrations, registrations simplified, or the regular normal registration, whether it's a co-registrant or lead registrant. They can also do P-port notifications. Later on, they can submit inquiries when that becomes relevant under Ukraine REACH. Authorizations also later when that becomes relevant. And so-called toxic substance permits, which are not under Ukraine REACH but under a separate regulation called Law on Chemical Safety. So it might be that the same only representative can also submit so-called toxic substance permits. But this will not be the focus of this presentation. That will be a subject for another video / webinar. So who is this only representative? Who has it? Must it be in Ukraine, if you will? So it must be a natural or legal person resident in Ukraine. So that's why we have our own office in Kyiv in Ukraine. So REACHLaw Ukraine LLC. For this purpose, because you have to be locally present and resident in Ukraine to be a Ukraine REACH only representative. Furthermore, the only representative shall have sufficient background in the practical handling of substances and information related to them. So this is again the same text as we have, for example, for EU REACH. And what that practically means is that you have to have the competence to handle these Ukraine REACH compliance matters pertaining to chemicals. You need to be able to handle legal requirements and understand, of course, the law. You also have to have data handling and IT capabilities to track volumes per Ukrainian customers covered by the only representative, and other skills, of course, to manage the only representation in general. So it's not just anyone who can jump into becoming an only representative. You have to have the necessary skills. And also experience is very important, and REACHLaw has experience of being an only representative since 2008 already, so that's a long time under EU REACH. And we are also an only representative, of course, for UK REACH, Turkey KKD, K REACH, EU REACH obviously, and then now Ukraine REACH also. If we look at the legal text pertaining to only representative in the Ukraine REACH regulation under Articles 28, 29 and 30, you can see it here. I just highlighted the important bits. Here again it says foreign manufacturer that manufactures a chemical substance, and here next comes the formulation, including as part of other chemical products. So it's a chemical product, it's a formulation. If you make formulations, you're a formulator, imported into Ukraine, obviously, for the purpose of complying with the requirements for state registration. This is the normal registration of a chemical substance by mutual agreement, appoints an individual or legal entity, which is the normal case, resident in Ukraine as an only representative. This representative must fulfill the obligations imposed on the importer in accordance with this technical regulation, and technical regulation means Ukraine REACH. And just like to highlight that this is a non-official translation, so please don't take it as like legal text. To look at the actual legal text, you have to read it in the original Ukrainian. Furthermore, it says here under Article 29 that the only representative of the foreign manufacturers must have sufficient knowledge and practical experience in handling chemical substances, maintain accessible and up-to-date information regarding the quantity of the chemical substance imported into Ukraine. So again, you have to track volumes, and then also document your compliance related to this technical regulation, meaning Ukraine REACH. So having the documentation paperwork in order is very important. And if all of this is in place, then your customers in Ukraine as a non-Ukrainian manufacturer of formulators will be considered as downstream users as per Article 30 here at the end. Very important. So herein lies the benefit of appointing only representative, is that if you have your only representative take care of importer obligations under Ukraine REACH, meaning pre-registration, registration and so forth, then your customers who you are supplying directly in Ukraine will be and are covered by the only representative. So the only representative needs to know who your customers are. If all these cases come true, then your customers in Ukraine, even though they are them directly importing your chemical products, will be considered as downstream users. And as we all know, downstream users do not have to register, for example, substances. So that's the power, if you will, of appointing an only representative, having an only representative in Ukraine for Ukraine REACH purposes in this case. So if we look at it visually, we have two cases. Case of import by customers, so these are customers in Ukraine, and then we have the other case where you have appointed an only representative in Ukraine under Ukraine REACH to take care of these importer obligations on behalf of your customers. So the first case looks like this. You are a manufacturer formulator here, for example, from the EU. You have a substance X that you are exporting to Ukraine to 3 customers, 1, 2 and 3. All of these, provided each are importing at 1 ton or more annually, would have to first pre-register the substance and then later on register the substance. You as a non-Ukrainian entity would of course have no legal obligations to do anything, and that of course is always applicable. Outside of Ukraine, Ukraine law does not apply. It is very clear. So in this case, each of these would have to comply individually with Ukraine REACH, performing the necessary pre-registrations and registrations. So it means that you would have 3 times the effort and time and costs in many cases for having your product, substance X, being compliant and being able to use by these customers 1, 2, and 3 in Ukraine. So not a very efficient way of going forward in these cases. The only case where this would be efficient is, of course, if all of these volumes you are in total for aggregate saying providing on the Ukrainian market less than 3 tons, and each of these are less than 1 ton. Then of course they do not have to do pre-registration or registration because it's out of scope. But if they are importing individually 1 ton or more, then they would have to pre-register and register, and 3 times, one for each importer or customer in this case. However, if you want to then appoint an only representative and make this setup much more efficient, it goes as follows. So again, you are the, for example, the non-Ukrainian manufacturer formulator here as an example in the EU for substance X. This is manufacturer. You can appoint an only representative in Ukraine, such as REACHLaw Ukraine, to take care of these importer obligations. So Ukraine REACH pre-registration and registration, for example, to begin with, centrally. So what this means is that these customers, as long as the only representative knows of these customers, tracks the volume of these customers, the only representative can get by with just doing one pre-registration for the aggregate volume, obviously, and eventually a registration for the aggregate volume of all of these. And by doing so, covering all of these importers in Ukraine under the only representative pre-registration and registration. So what this means is that as long as the OR knows who these customers are, and that is okay, and the non-Ukrainian manufacturer formulator agrees to cover them, they will be considered as downstream users of substance X, meaning that they will not have to do anything pertaining to registrations, pre-registrations, registrations, and so forth, because that is centrally covered by the only representative, such as REACHLaw Ukraine LLC. So you can see that in this case, we can get by with just one pre-registration and one registration, albeit of course the registration has to account for the total volume of the customers covered in Ukraine. But with that, you can see that this is a very efficient setup, and it also makes it possible for new customers to pop up spontaneously, more or less, as long as the OR is made aware of these and the registration volume covers those new customers. Then it's a very quick setup to cover those also under the OR, so that they do not have to do anything and they can just get the shipment of your chemical substance directly. So it is a very efficient way of taking care of Ukraine REACH compliance, where you have several customers, for example, in Ukraine, or you can just have one, but at least having an OR makes the market access very flexible and very easy, of course, for your customers, because I think on this side, I would rather be a customer on this side than this side, because otherwise here I would have to do it myself and it would cost something. Here, eventually, of course, there are no free lunches, so the cost will be baked into the fee or the price of the substance, but that is usually just happens over time, so it's not so dramatic. So very efficient, cost efficient, everyone's happy in this type of a scenario. So definitely recommend having and appointing only representatives for Ukraine REACH compliance purposes. If you are a manufacturer or a formulator of mixtures, manufacturer of substance or a formulator of mixtures, then you can appoint an only representative under Ukraine REACH in Ukraine, provided you're of course outside of the Ukraine. Furthermore, using an only representative also makes it possible to protect the confidentiality of substances as part of your chemical products, so your chemical mixtures in some cases. So especially in cases where such substances do not have to be declared on the safety data sheet, for example, because they are not hazardous or they are less than a concentration threshold requiring to be included in the safety data sheet. There are other options, of course. If you still you need to report these substances, then you can seek for an alternative name request under Ukraine CLP. But that's a topic for a different video and webinar to further protect the confidentiality of your substances, some substances as part of your chemical mixtures placed on the Ukrainian market. So a lot of benefits of having an only representative. So how do you appoint an only representative? It is fairly straightforward, I would say. So first, of course, you need to find a competent only representative. REACHLaw Ukraine is such. We recommend ourselves, obviously, in this case. So please feel free to contact us. And we've done this for many years. So I would say we are top-notch when it comes to providing only representative services and high-quality services thereof. So if we now take as an example that you are appointing REACHLaw, then REACHLaw would draw up the necessary only representative agreements, including an appointment letter of Ukraine REACH only representative, including also a scope of the substances that will be covered by the only representative agreement. This can be updated later on with new substances or substances removed if that is the case. Then you would sign the only representative agreement and appointment letters and so forth. And once that is done, then you are complete. You have appointed an only representative, and the only representative can start the work by setting up the necessary accounts and then followed by the applicable compliance work, such as doing the pre-registrations and later on registrations and so forth. And these are, as said, covered in separate videos. So we have a pre-registration video, Ukraine REACH pre-registration, and then a Ukraine REACH registration video. So here on YouTube, so have a look at those. So with that, now you know who can appoint Ukraine REACH only representatives and what are the benefits and how the appointment process goes. So please feel free to reach out for Ukraine REACH and CLP support from REACHLaw and ask for a quotation or proposal already today if you want. Please contact us at sales@reachlaw.fi, or you will see our contact details also in the next slides. So just feel free to reach out and get a quotation. It doesn't cost you anything to ask for a quotation. So lastly, our contact details. So Lesia Winterberg and me, Frederik Johanson. Please feel free to contact us also directly. You can use the sales@reachlaw.fi or just contact us directly for additional discussions and requests for proposals, etc. So we'll be happy to help. So with that, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and I wish you a great day. Bye bye.